Now adjust the volume control so that the sound can be heard in all parts of the room.
This is the Protect Your Assets podcast.
You get the idea?
It's on the internet.
Make him the cutest that I've ever seen.
Go on.
Give him 2 lips like
It's like no cheese I've ever tasted.
tell him that his love
Here's the Sandman.
over Sandman.
You. Yes, you. I want to ask you a very important question. Are you looking forward to going back to work on Monday? Well, if you're dreading it, then today's show is just for you, as I'll be walking you through how to retire on your own terms sooner than you might have thought possible. You can consider this free therapy. Compliments of the Sandman. It's all coming up next. So stick around. Good morning. I am David Hollander, your host. And this is Protect Your Assets for those of you just joining us for the first time. Welcome, people around here. They call me the Sandman. You hear the jingle. I am the only one on this station who can help you sleep better at night by answering your most troubled tax, legal, financial questions. Listen, doing something for the first time, something you've never done before, well, it can be thrilling, but it can also be scary. I'm not talking about skydiving. I'm talking about quitting your job. Think about that for a minute. What steps should you take? What do you do with your 401k or those HSA benefits, FSAs you've been accumulating all those years? What happens to your unused sick time and or PTO? Can you even afford to leave your job right now when things are so uncertain in the economy? Even if you love your job, don't leave these questions unanswered, because you never know what's right around the corner. And so today I'm going to share with you what happens to all these things you've accumulated if something were to change. Don't go at this blindly. This could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. So listen to the entire show today as we go through things you need to know if you're getting ready to retire or you're forced to retire. All right, now let's get started. Well, a good week for the market. We saw the Dow up 3%, S&P up almost 2.9%, NASDAQ up 3.4%, the MSCI International up 0.9%. Year to date, we're close to 10% positive international. It's the only bright spot out there. 10-year Treasury, pretty flat at 4.31%. Oil, we saw a breakdown this week, down 7.1% to close at 58.55. So we broke that $60 a barrel support level. And bonds down a little bit, 0.7%, 97.95. First quarter earnings season right now is underway. All the companies are reporting. About 70% of the S&P 500 companies have reported their earnings thus far for the first quarter. And overall, 76% of those reporting relatively positive, with Q1 up over 12.5%. That's pretty good. But, and we all know, doesn't feel that great, right? And you're right, because the guidance, this is what they talk about, what's coming for the rest of the year, that's weakened. And companies are saying that they're uncertain about the tariffs and about the consumers because they're not spending on those high price goods, right? You cut back a little bit on that Louis Vuitton bag. And so earnings forecasts for the second quarter, well, they're down quite substantially from 11.3% to 5.8%. That's a big drop. And the standouts this past week were Amazon and Apple, as they said, because of the China unknown, they just don't know what sales are going to look like. Fair enough. So what does that mean about jobs? Well, we had the jobs report for April, came out Friday, and that number was overall healthy. Unemployment's still sitting around 3.4%. That's down, remember. I'm sorry, 4.2%, down from 3.4% at the low, but still below the long-term average. So even though that is creeping up, long-term average is 5.7. So we're seeing jobs overall holding in there. But again, from the forecast, keep in mind that the number we just saw Friday is lagging. And as Amazon and Apple are saying, if tariffs push inflation higher, then you could see increases in layoffs for jobs this year. I expect the Fed to cut rates later this year. There's some controversy around that. I think there's going to be 2 to 3 25 basis point cuts each time. That means 0.25%. So possibly up to 75 basis points coming off your rates. I was with our bankers yesterday. We had a little get together at our office in Larkspur. Depressed to see the Warriors. Sorry. But anyway, we were talking about rates and refinancing and when you might want to do that. And towards the end of the year is looking better than right now. Even though right now rates weren't bad. We were just talking about rates right now. And there's, depends on what you need. Anyway. So with a quieter administration right now, a little bit better sentiment overall, the market has seen a couple good weeks to the upside the past few weeks. Now, that doesn't mean that volatility is not normal and doesn't mean we're not going to see some pullbacks. And in any given year, remember, 2 to 3 pullbacks are healthy, even though when you see your balances, that doesn't feel good. A lot of people don't look at it. And this is very likely this year. Why? Because we still haven't seen the tariffs, the inflation, and the economic growth unwind. And so we need the rest of the year to do that. So with lower growth expectations this year, what do I see? I don't see a recession for 25. Use this time when there's pullbacks to reposition your portfolios. When markets are up like they are right now, you should be checking your overall allocation. And when markets go down, you should use those opportunities to rebalance, diversify. Coming up next, don't leave money on the table if you're planning on retiring this year or thinking about it. And when I come back, we're going to talk about just that. You're listening to Protect Your Assets. This is David Hollander, the Sandman. We will be right back.
Take the first step toward reaching your financial goals and get the information that can help you live a confident retirement. That first step is going to pyaevents.com and signing up for our next free event. That's pyaevents.com. Now, back to Protect Your Assets with David Hollander, the Sandman.
Welcome back. I am David Hollander, also known as the Sandman around here. And today we're talking about protecting your assets. And if you're thinking about leaving your job or you're worried about getting fired, you don't want to leave money on the table. And so we're going to talk today about some things that could add up to a lot of money if you know what to look for or just to get ready for it. And this all came up because last night we had a event at our Larkspur office. And Jay came walking up to me. And he said after 25 years on the job, he's worried about being laid off because I guess there's a new boss there now and he doesn't like him. So he's remarried, I should say. This is his new wife, and he has a baby on the way. And he just can't stand the stress. If you have a 401k, your employer may add money on your behalf. So this is an area you want to look at if you're thinking about leaving work. Because this is called matching contributions. Jay and I were talking about this. And so here's the example I gave him. The company provides, in his case, 50 cents for every dollar that he saves up to 6% of his annual salary. So we were talking about how that worked. And so I said, well, hey, look, Jay, if you make $100,000 a year and you stash away $6,000, which would be 6% in your 401k here in 2025, your employer will contribute an additional $3,000 if you do that. So if he's worried about what's going to happen here in the next month, and let's say he's put in about $4,000 so far, well, throw that extra 2 in there, get that extra 1, and now you fully maximize that extra $3,000 that you should get. It's free money. And if you decide to leave or something bad happens, well, that's yours. You keep it, you walk away, and thank you very much. Now, the other thing you got to check out with that kind of money is something called vesting. And this is where we got into it because Jay was saying, well, my vesting schedule does this. And I said, well, look, Jay, there's only a couple types of it. Let's talk about vesting. What does that mean? Because legally, that's in California the way it goes. So let's talk about that. Before you quit, check to see if your plan includes what's known as a vesting requirement to keep that extra $3,000 of matching we were just talking about that your employer sticks in there. How does that work? What does it look like? Well, vesting, that's a process through which you gradually, underline that word, gradually, take ownership of the payment made into your 401k by your employer over the course of time. In Jay's case, it involved becoming the owner of that money based on the schedule. So we looked at Jay's retirement plan vesting schedule. He had to pull it up on his phone. We were looking at it. And so if he quit or he was fired before a certain period had passed, then he gives up part of that money. Now realize this, vesting doesn't apply to your contribution. So Jay's $6,000 that he would have put into that plan is his. The employer can't take it back or take any percentage of that. But when it comes to the matching, the $3,000, I said to Jay, we need to find out, when we look at your schedule, how is that calculated? So I explained to Jay that there are basically 2 approaches, what's known as time-based vesting. You may want to write that down. The first one is called this. It's called a cliff schedule. And think about it like this. Maybe you like to go to the shore. Maybe you've been to the cliffs and looking over the shore, right at the beach, and there's no barrier there, and you don't want to get too close to the cliff because if you do, you slip and fall off. So there's something called a cliff vesting schedule, which means it's all or nothing, ride or die. If you quit your job before working the number of years that were required, then you lose all the employer contribution. You lose that $3,000. But once you pass the threshold, it's like walking on water, walking on air. That's kind of cool. That's what happens. You get the $3,000. The alternative to that is you might have a gradual or graded vesting schedule. Think about that like climbing a flight of stairs. Each step you go up unlocks a percentage of that $3,000 that your employer stuck in there for whatever that graded period of time is. And that's what Jay's looked like. So we started looking at examples. If your plan, Jay's plan, was a 4-year graded schedule, then he would get to unlock or keep 25% of that match per year before he got to keep the entire thing after 4 years. So 25% roughly per year. So if you receive $1,000 a year from your employer, and after 2 years you have $2,000 in there from the employer, and then you quit. If your plan used a 3-year cliff strategy, 3 flights of stairs, you're going to forfeit one of those flights of stairs. Okay? Now, if it's a cliff, remember, if it's a cliff, not a vesting schedule, you lose it all. If you don't make it the full 3 years, you quit in year 2, you're going to lose all of it. If it's a vesting percentage, you get to keep 2 of those 3 flights of stairs. In other words, $2,000. So find out what your vesting schedule is, Jay, before you retire. Let's make sure about it. Because again, this year in 25, since you've been there for 25 years, this is where it helped Jay. Because once you reach the required years of employment, in Jay's case it was 4 years, he'd been there for 25, then any future contribution is 100% his. So that's where that got a little wrinkly with him, but I explained it to him. I let him know that there are federal rules that cap the amount of time that the workplace retirement can require him to stay on that job to become fully vested. And currently the law says, I'm a lawyer, remember that, 3 years is the longest a cliff vesting schedule can last. 6 years is the longest a plan can use a graded schedule in Jay's case. Another rule, Jay, that you must be fully vested by the time you reach the target retirement age listed in your plan. It's another one. Another little wrinkle you got to know about. If your 401k says the target retirement age is 65 and you join the plan at age 63, you will be fully vested within 2 years when you turn 65. And so that regular employee vesting schedule, guess what? Doesn't apply to you. So then Jay said to me, well, if he knew what his options were with his benefits at work. And I said, well, Jay, like what? What are you more concerned about? And he said, well, what about an HSA account? I have one of those too. It's called a health savings account. So I let him know that he might be able to leave money in his old account and roll that over to a new HSA when he leaves the job. And so I asked him to check, again, the HR disclosure on that for details about that, because that money is still his even if he leaves his job. So there's no rush to spend it, though you won't be able to make additional contributions if you no longer are covered by that plan, that health plan. So I encourage him in looking into investing that and considering using it much later in life for long-term care. I love that. I have that in my book, HSAs, free money, tax-free, all that good stuff that you want to get more information on for sure. Then Jay brought up this one, the flexible spending account. Have you heard this, FSA? Well, he had one of those. I let him know that this money is usually lose it if you don't use it. Meaning that any money that's in that FSA when he leaves that job will be forfeited back to the employer. So again, I asked him to check with his HR to get the exact details on that plan. And then we talked about considering spending down that now, and maybe some BART expenses or things like that before he leaves. Otherwise, it's gone. And again, that was several $1,000s just sitting there. So I have to ask you the question. Are you dreading going back to work on Monday? You're just kind of tired of it? Well, if that's you, then you need to give me a call right now, because we can help you look at all of your options and uncover some of those dollars that may be sitting there that you didn't even know you had. And right now, I have something to give to you. It's called a checklist. I can email this to you right now so you make sure you're not missing anything. It's like a cheat sheet. Well, if you want that right now, call this number, 866-PROTECT. That's because we protect you. 866-776-8328. You can talk to a member of my team right now, maybe even me. I'm here right now. Call the number, 866-PROTECT, to get your complimentary checklist, cheat sheet, whatever you want to call it. Coming up next, it's time for our popular They Say segment, where they say once you leave your company, you lose your PTO. Is that true? And where should you get your medical and health care if you're not Medicare eligible yet? Find out. It's a big one. You certainly don't want to miss it. You're listening to Protect Your Assets with me, David Hollander, the Sandman. I'll be right back.
Take the first step toward reaching your financial goals and get the information that can help you live a confident retirement. That first step is going to pyaevents.com and signing up for our next free event. That's pyaevents.com. Now back to Protect Your Assets with David Hollander, the Sandman.
Welcome back. I am David Hollander. People around here, they call me the Sandman. And that's because I help you sleep well at night by answering your most troubled legal, tax, financial questions. I am an attorney and a financial advisor, and we do taxes, and we see lots of cases. So I'm more than happy to help you with your tough times. Are you ready to call it quits and move on to your next job, or maybe just ease into retirement? Well, if you're not sure what to do or what steps you should take, like what do you do with your 401k? What happens to your unused sick time and PTO? Can you even afford to leave your job? Well, we have answers for you. We've been talking about it this morning, and if you missed any of it, then you've got to go check out the podcast. So wherever you get your podcast, type in Protect Your Assets, and you'll see the little Sandman character, and then you can search the topic you're looking for and listen to the podcast. If you like it, please share it with your friend. I would appreciate that. So you are tuned in right now as we're talking about retirement benefits and what you don't want to leave behind, because we're talking about a lot of money. There could be quite a bit there. So let's talk about this one. Now it's time for our fan favorite part of our show. This is our They Say segment, where we debunk common myths, half-truths, and sometimes just bad advice that they say.
Who are they? What do they know that I don't? And what are they saying this week? Here's David Hollander, the Sandman's answer.
All right, so here's one they say. They say that once you leave your job, you lose your PTO. Is that really true? And if you do leave your job, where should you get your health care if you're under age 65? Well, the answer depends on what state you live in, but if you're hearing me right now, you're probably in California. So if that's you, then get this. California law says it's required that companies pay you any unused PTO when you leave the company, period. That's it. Definitive. Anyway, here we go. So what is unused PTO? This is where, of course, the details get into it. Unused PTO. PTO stands for paid time off. And you have earned that while you're working at the company, but you haven't taken it yet. Now, this is where the confusion usually happens. Your company is not, there's no federal or state law that requires your company to offer PTO. That's where the confusion comes in. Many businesses choose to have PTO. That's the difference. So a company's PTO policy, if they've chosen to do that, to offer that to you, could include things like vacation leave, sick time, holidays, personal days, family and medical leave. Lots of companies have policies that allow you to accrue these types of benefits, PTO type benefits, by the hour, by the day, by the week, or the pay period. I'll give you an example. You may earn 5 hours of PTO every 2 weeks that you show up to your job between the hours you're supposed to be there. Other companies allow employees to accrue more PTO the longer they're with the particular company. You want another example? Okay, you could earn 4 weeks of PTO per year during your first 5 years with a company. And then once you cross that 5-year barrier, you start to accrue 5 weeks of annual PTO. Yes, your company could set a certain policy for unused PTO. And again, this is where the details get into it again. So make sure you understand what your company's policies are when it comes to getting that free money, which you've earned is yours, what you're entitled to, so you don't lose it. Here's some examples. So please write down these terms. These are different terms that control how you get your money. The first one's called an accrual cap. Accrual cap. Some companies limit how much PTO you can accrue while you work for that company. Let me give you an example. A company may allow you to earn no more than 4 weeks of PTO at one time. So when you reach that cap, that 4-week cap, you can't earn any more PTO until you use some of that for whatever they allow you to use it for. So you could take a vacation, maybe call in sick, take a holiday, personal day, all that kind of stuff. Max out the 4 weeks, then you quit. Okay. What about an accrual rollover? Well, companies allow you to carry over your accrued PTO. For instance, at the end of this year, or let's say 24, because you're thinking about retiring now, at the end of 24, your company allowed you to roll over any of that unused vacation days, PTOs from the past. Some companies may allow you to carry over 5 days of PTO each year because they have a limitation on the days you can roll. So you need to find that out. Many companies use the rollover policy to give you some flexibility by encouraging you, again, to take some time off. So find out what that is because, again, if you're rolling these days over and you're accruing these balances, again, when you leave, that might be a big check. And that's going to be taxable. And so you want to know that before you leave because there's, again, as you can see with 401ks or HSAs, there might be ways to consolidate things now before you leave and pay less taxes on that money. Get more free money, if you will. A lot of companies have what's called the use it or lose it. You can write that down. Use it or lose it. So in contrast to the accrual or the rollover, the use it or lose it sounds like what it is. You must take your PTO during a specific time frame, and if you don't, you lose it. You forfeit it. It's over. Forget about it. So if you get 3 weeks per year of PTO and it's use it or lose it and you don't do it by the end of the year, sorry, it's gone. All right, what about medical and healthcare? Because this is a big one. This is expensive. A lot of people don't know anything about this until they leave. So do not overlook this. And like I said, it depends on how old you are. So if you're like Jay and you're under 65 and you're, worried about getting laid off or you just hate your boss and you're going to leave and you're under 65, then you should be eligible for COBRA. COBRA lets you stay on your old employer's health insurance for up to 18 months. However, it's expensive. And that option will be provided to you by the employer when you separate from work. What else can you do? Well, you can shop. You can shop for a policy. You can buy your own policy. It's a free country after all. And you can get that through the public marketplace. And these are available. Google this, Affordable Care Act. Write that down, Affordable Care Act. You may qualify for some benefits out there you didn't even know existed, like some tax credits. Talk to a health insurance agent to find out what's best for you. Now, if you're over age 65, you need to know which Medicare option is the best for you because you're eligible for Medicare. And so you may not care about COBRA. You shouldn't, probably. If you want to know more about Medicare, I did an entire show on this for you. So again, you can go to your favorite podcast place, type in Protect Your Assets Medicare, and you'll have a full show on what to know about Medicare, because that in itself is another long talk. I don't have time for it right now. Do you have any long-term care? Long-term care is probably not portable, meaning you can't take it with you if you leave. So find out what your options are there while you're still healthy. And that means that if any of this information has been helpful to you at this point in time, you liked it, imagine what we can do for you if you get advice that's tailored to you. I'm talking to you. That's right, you. Wouldn't it feel great to know that you can retire Monday with consistent and stable income each and every month, no matter what's going on up there? Make sure it's tax efficient. Make sure your estate plan's in order so everything goes to your heirs. Which, again, I had another week this past week. Wow, this guy had a lot of real estate, a lot of bank accounts all over the place. He gave me a couple of weeks to get it all together for him and his wife and his kids because he just didn't think about it. He thought about it, of course, but it's the last thing on his list. He's busy. I know. You're busy. So here's what I'll do for you right now. I'm going to give you chapter 7 of my book. Why? Because it gets into healthcare. And I'll give you an outline you can look at if you're concerned about healthcare and what you might do. I'll email that to you right now, chapter 7 of the Protect Your Assets book. It's easy to get this, and it's going to be free if you call this number, 866-776-8328, 866-776-8328. What does that spell? 866-PROTECT. That's easy to remember, 866-PROTECT. Remove the gray area about health care. Call us now. Get that copy of that book right now. 866-PROTECT. Keep it tuned right here because when we come back, I'm going to share with you how not considering this last issue could force you to wind up regretting your retirement. Answers coming up next. We'll be right back.
If you missed any of Protect Your Assets with David Hollander, all you have to do is go to pyaradio.com where you can download or listen to our latest shows for free. Just go to pyaradio.com on your computer or mobile device when it's most convenient for you. That's pyaradio.com. Now back to Protect Your Assets with David Hollander, the Sandman.
Welcome back. I am David Hollander, also known as the Sandman, and you are listening to Protect Your Assets this morning. And people around here, they call me the Sandman, and that's because I help my listeners sleep well at night by answering their tax, legal, and financial questions each week. That's because I've been managing a tax, legal, and financial firm for over 30 years. So, if you're thinking about quitting your job or retiring this year, then there may be benefits and options at your job right now that you just haven't considered. And if you haven't thought about those and you leave your job, you could be leaving quite a bit of money on the table. And so I encourage you not to go through this blindly and find out what you need to know. So this morning we've been covering the subject and going over it. Today we're talking about what to do if you're about to leave your job, and this last one is a big one, so I want to bring this to you now. If you're lucky enough, and I'm still seeing this today, believe it or not, people have pension benefits where they're accruing money in a pension fund. And then when they leave their job, they have to make a decision. And so if you're lucky enough to be in this position, you have 3 choices typically. And pay attention, this is important. Pay attention. Option 1, you could just leave the money there. Leave it with your old boss, your job, the company, whatever, and you receive a periodic withdrawal directly from the plan. Many clients, they appreciate the stability and lifelong nature of these types of accounts and these payments monthly, which in many cases are indexed for inflation. The thing you need to understand, though, when you get into that, and that's why I encourage you, please get some help on this one, because there's a lot of choices within that you have something called mortality risk in there. And what do I mean by that is you and your spouse could live longer, or not long enough in some cases, to realize the full value of that pension. I'll explain an example. If you had a $1 million balance in your pension and you look at all your options and you could receive $5,500 a month, and that sounds pretty good. And then let's say you die in 2 years. Your spouse and or your kids just got nothing, zero. What? Yeah, you just lost $868,000. It's a lot of money, right? Option 2. You could take that money and you could annuitize it. You could create your own pension. And with higher rates right now, and again, rates are higher right now. Maybe you don't like your old company. Maybe you're worried about them. You don't like the CEO, whatever. They could become insolvent. You could use that balance to buy your own annuity. This is tax deferred. You could transfer that full value without any tax. And I'm seeing rates at 6% and greater right now in lifetime income. And you can still have access to the cash balance in that plan. So you're not, giving it up forever. There's ways to change that and look at that. So check that option 2 out if you're curious. Or there's always option 3. You could do what's called a rollover, a cash out. It's not like just taking the cash and walking away. I don't encourage you to do that. That's pull the ripcord, basically. Don't do that. But the rollover might be a nice option where you could roll over that balance to a self-directed IRA or something called a locked-in retirement account, a LIRA. And you can do that without tax consequences. You can just transfer that. And then you and or your spouse would be able to access those funds as you needed them and then figure out how you want to pay taxes on it as you take it out over your lifetimes. And then don't forget about when it transfers to your kids, how you deal with that, because that's another issue. I know what you're saying. There's so much to think about when it comes to this stuff, right? Well, if you have questions and there isn't an attorney and a CPA and a financial planner involved in this, mapping it all out for you in writing so you can see it, then you need to get these questions answered. And you can do that right now by picking up the phone and calling us. 866-PROTECT. Give me a call right now, 866-776-8328, and get your own personal meeting, complimentary, so we can help you understand what you can do. 866-PROTECT. It is that important. 866-PROTECT. I'd like to give a big thanks to the entire Protect Your Assets team for putting together a great show. Executive producer, network manager, Kevin Renfer. And, of course, all the fabulous producers back there, Raph, Zach, Nick. Thanks, guys, because without my team, I'm just another pretty voice on the radio. You have been listening to the Protect Your Assets show. I am David Hollander, the Sandman. Go out and make the rest of your life the best of your life.
Investment advisory services are offered through Liberty Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. The strategies mentioned are not suitable for everyone. The information expressed does not consider your specific situation or objectives and may not be appropriate for all investors. Past performance is not indicative of future results. To better understand the risk associated with investing and how it reacts to different market conditions, listeners should always consult with their qualified investment professionals, financial advisors, legal or tax specialists, and conduct their due diligence before making any financial decisions or taking any action. The legal information provided on the air is not intended to substitute for callers hiring their lawyers to advise them about personal legal matters. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Liberty Group LLC paid for the following program, and the host's views and opinions do not represent those of the station or its ownership. California Life Agent number 048569. Persons engaging the services of one affiliate of Liberty Group LLC companies should be aware that each company is operated separately. You're listening to the Protect Your Assets Radio Network.